When we are adding positive and negative numbers together, there's two rules that I remember. The first one is if I'm adding two numbers with the same sign, I add the two values and take the sign of the larger value. If I'm dealing with two different signs, so if it's a different sign, I say different sign subtract and take the sign of the larger value. So let me show you through an example. My first example, I have -8 plus -12. This is an example of a negative plus a negative. So both numbers are negatives, same sign. Therefore, I'm going to add the two values. 8 plus 12 is 20, and then I'm going to take the sign of the larger value. The larger value is 12, not the larger number, but the larger value is 12. The 12 has a negative, so my answer will be negative. So same sign, add, take the sign of the larger value. The next one, I have a positive number, 12 is a positive number, plus a negative number. That's two different signs. So 12 is positive, 22 is negative. I'm going to subtract those two values. 22 minus 12. 22 minus 12 is 10, but then I need to take the sign of the larger value. So taking the sign of the larger value between 12 and 22 is 22. 22 is negative, so my answer will take the negative. Okay, here's another example. 17 plus -17, same signs or different signs. 17 is positive. -17, well, that's negative. That's a different sign, so I'm going to subtract. 17 minus 17 is 0. And then taking the sign of the larger number, well, they're equal values. And taking the sign of the larger value, they're equal values. 17 and 17 are equal. So 0 isn't positive or negative. So taking the sign of the larger value wouldn't make any sense here. 17 plus -17 will equal 0. Any number, and this is a good one right here, any number plus its additive inverse will always equal 0. That's a good rule right there. That's a rule to remember, a rule to remember. In fact, here it is again, -31 plus 31. -31 plus 31 is positive. That would be a different sign. Different sign, subtract. 31 minus 31 is 0. Or we could think of it as the rule. A number plus its opposite is always going to equal 0. Now, what happens if we take 0 and we add -74? Well, if we have 0 and we add -74, that's two different signs subtract, 74 minus 0, and then we take the sign of the larger number. 74 minus 0 is 74. I keep saying the larger number, but I mean the larger value. 0, 74. 74 is definitely a larger value than 0. -74 is much smaller than 0, but 74 is a larger value. So we look at the value. You could think of the absolute value. We're going to look at that value. 74 is a larger value than 0. Its sign is negative. So we're always going to take the sign of the larger value. Whenever we're adding and subtracting, we're going to take the sign of the larger value. -5 ninths plus -2 ninths. Well, negative plus a negative. So those are the same sign. So we're going to add those two values. 5 ninths plus 2 ninths. Same sign, add. That gives me 7/9, but remember, your last step is always to take the sign of the larger value. The larger value here is 5/9, and its sign is negative, so our answer will be negative. So these two rules, same sign add, different sign subtract. So if you can recognize whether or not the two values have the same sign or if they have different signs, then you'll know whether or not to add or subtract. And always remember that you take the sign of the larger value. Take the sign of the larger value. And that's adding.